Good evening, my friends. Tonight, I am going to activate your mind to manifest anything. Not some things, not the small, manageable things you have already half convinced yourself are possible. Anything. I do not say this in the loose language of inspiration, the way people reach for large words when they mean something smaller. I say it with the full weight of what I know to be true. The mind you carry into this room tonight holds within it the infinite, unqualified power to reshape every dimension of your world. Your current circumstances are not permanent. They are not fixed. They are not the final verdict on what your life can be. They are fluid, moldable, responsive, entirely subject to the images and assumptions you dare to impress upon the inner man. For what is man but imagination itself? What is God but the creative power that lives and breathes and moves through the very consciousness you are using right now to receive these words? If you are waiting for something outside you to change so that you may feel different, if you are waiting for the account balance to improve before you feel abundant, for the relationship to appear before you feel loved, for the diagnosis to change before you feel whole, you are living in reverse. Life is not lived from the outside in. It has never been lived that way, and it never will be. Life is lived from the inside out. Consciousness is the only reality. The world reflects not what you want, not what you deserve, not what you have worked for. It reflects what you are. And what you are is nothing more and nothing less than the sum total of the thoughts you continuously think and the states you habitually occupy. All transformation begins with a shift in consciousness. And the truth that makes this both simple and radical is this: you become what you believe yourself to be. You cannot rise higher than your assumptions. You cannot live more abundantly than your deepest, most habitual inner sense of self. Let me show you something that will change the way you see your life permanently. Bring to mind the thing you desire most: a home, a fortune, a partner, radiant health, a sense of deep, unshakable purpose. Whatever it is, hold it clearly. Now I am going to ask you to do something that feels foreign to everything you have been taught about how reality works. I am not going to ask you to wish for this thing. I am not going to ask you to pray for it, to hope for it, to set it as a goal on a horizon you are walking toward. I am going to ask you to claim it, to assume it as your present reality, to treat it not as something approaching, but as something that already is. The assumption, though false to the physical senses in this moment, if persisted in, if genuinely inhabited, night after night, breath after breath, thought after thought, will harden into fact. This is not philosophy. This is not mysticism. This is the operating law of consciousness, as precise and as impersonal as the law of gravity. And here is the key I want to press into your hands. You must dwell in the end, not visit it occasionally, like a tourist who admires someone else's home. Not test it cautiously, 1 foot in and 1 foot ready to retreat. You must move into it the way a person moves into a new home, unpacks their belongings, learns which floorboards creak, which window lets in the morning light, which chair becomes their favorite. You must feel the furniture of your fulfilled desire, touch its walls in imagination, breathe its air, learn its ordinary details, until it feels not extraordinary, but simply yours. Because feeling is the secret. Feeling is the bridge, the only bridge, between the inner world of assumption and the outer world of manifestation. Thought alone is not enough. You must feel your way into the desired state. The universe does not hear your words. It reads your frequency. It detects the actual felt quality of your inner experience and responds to that with the same precision with which a tuning fork responds to its exact pitch and no other. When you say, "I am wealthy but feel," underneath the words, the familiar contraction of lack, the universe ignores the words entirely and responds to the feeling, always the feeling. This is why you must marry thought to feeling. This is why you must not just think the desired state, but inhabit it until the thought and the feeling are one unified inner reality, indistinguishable from each other, as natural and unremarkable as breathing. Do not concern yourself with the how. I want to say this as plainly as possible, because the how is the place where most people spend enormous creative energy that belongs elsewhere. The mechanism of delivery is not your responsibility. The seed does not manage its own germination. It does not concern itself with the specific chemistry of the soil, the precise timing of the rain, the exact temperature required for the cell wall to split and the first root to reach downward. It simply knows, in whatever way seeds know anything, that it must become what it is. And it does. Your only task, your single, complete, sufficient task, is to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, not to engineer the path, not to figure out which sequence of events must occur, not to make yourself available to only certain kinds of delivery while blocking others, to dwell in the end, to inhabit the consciousness of someone for whom the thing is already accomplished, and to trust that the bridge of incidents, the specific, often surprising, always perfect chain of circumstances that consciousness builds between assumption and manifestation will construct itself precisely without your interference. This is not passivity. This is the most active thing you can do, because the work of consciousness is the only work that actually creates anything. All outer activity is simply the physical expression of an inner state that has already been established. Every night, before sleep takes you, revise your day. Do not drift unconsciously toward rest, carrying the unexamined residue of whatever the day brought. Use this threshold, this sacred border between waking and dreaming deliberately. Use it to impress upon the subconscious mind the image of your fulfilled desire. See it, hear it, touch it in imagination. Let it become so familiar, so textured, so sensory and specific that it begins to feel not miraculous, but simply normal. This is the target feeling, normal. Not the electric charge of something hoped for, not the breathless excitement of something almost but not yet received. The quiet, unremarkable normalness of something that is simply and completely yours. The mind is always creating, even in the moments you are not paying attention. Every idle comment, every casual grumble, every reflexive statement of lack is a command issued to the subconscious, which accepts without evaluation, without discrimination, without asking whether you meant it or whether you would prefer something different. It simply receives and creates accordingly. This is why you must discipline your inner conversations. Not with force, not with the exhausting vigilance of someone trying to catch and correct every stray thought, but with the settled intention of someone who has made a decision. You have decided who you are. You have decided what is true. And from that decision, you speak to yourself privately, consistently, in the unguarded moments as much as the deliberate ones, as one who already possesses what they seek. Here is something most people overlook, and it costs them everything. Doubt is also an assumption. Fear is a form of belief. When you entertain these inner states, when you give them your attention, your emotional energy, your quiet, sustained focus, you are not simply worrying. You are manifesting from them. The law is impersonal. It does not evaluate the content of your assumption and reward only the ones it approves of. It simply reflects. Whatever you occupy, it creates more of. Whatever you dwell in, it expands. This is the terrible power of fear, fully understood. And it is also the liberating power of faith, fully understood. Because if the law is that precise, that reliable, that completely consistent, then it responds just as precisely to the assumption of abundance as it does to the assumption of lack, to the assumption of love as to the assumption of loneliness, to the assumption of health as to the assumption of illness. The law has no preference. It is a mirror, not a judge, and you can choose what stands in front of it. To activate your mind, truly activate it, not just excite it for an evening, but genuinely engage its creative power, you must first stop identifying with your past. Your past is not your identity, it is your history. And history, once it has occurred, exists only as memory. You are not your failures. You are not your traumas. You are not the patterns that formed before you understood what was forming them. You are awareness itself. You are the operant power, the living, conscious, creative force that chooses what to assume, what to inhabit, what to make real in the only laboratory that matters, the interior of your own mind. The moment you awaken to this, the moment it becomes not just an idea you find interesting, but a truth you feel in your body, you are free. Because if you can assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the law must build you a bridge to its realization. Not might, must. This is not wishful thinking dressed up in confident language. This is the mechanics of consciousness, as precise and as non-negotiable as mathematics. Your mind is the workshop of God, not a workshop God occasionally visits, not a workshop that occasionally channels divine creativity. The actual workshop, the place where all creation begins, in every life, in every era, in every dimension of human experience. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the very substance of reality. Everything that human hands have ever built began as a thought, a vision, a feeling of something not yet visible. And what is true of the buildings and the machines and the works of art is true of your circumstances, your relationships, your financial life. Every dimension of your visible world began in someone's imagination, including your own. You must see it within before you can see it without. You must know it is done in the dimension where all things are first made real before the physical world reflects it back to you. When Jesus said, "Whatsoever you ask for when you pray, believe that you have received it, and it shall be yours," he was not speaking in metaphor. He was not offering comfort. He was describing the precise mechanism of creation. Believe you have received it. Not that you will receive it someday, if you are patient enough and good enough and have done enough of the right practices. That you have received it. Present tense. Done. Established in consciousness, which is the only place establishment occurs. Let me go deeper now. Because the creative act is not a moment, it is a state, it is an identity. You are not a person who occasionally does imagination. You are imagination itself, continuously, ceaselessly, whether you direct it or not. You are not someone who sometimes manifests. You are manifestation, walking, breathing, thinking. The degree to which you genuinely grasp this determines how quickly and precisely your world responds to you. Once you understand that your mind is the projector and the world the screen, you stop rearranging furniture on the screen. You go directly to the film, your thoughts, your assumptions, your inner speech, the sustained emotional atmosphere of your interior life. You change the film, and the scene must change. Not might change. Must. This is the divine mystery stated plainly. The world is yourself pushed out. Every person you encounter, every circumstance that finds you, every coincidence that seems to arrive from nowhere, all of it arises from the patterns of thought you have entertained, accepted, and sustained. If you want new relationships, you must first form a new inner self. If you want new financial reality, you must first inhabit the consciousness of a new financial self. You must see yourself differently, speak to yourself differently, respond to life as the version of yourself who already is what you desire to be. Because if you continue to think from the state of lack, you continue to call lack into being, not as punishment, not as a cosmic judgment on your worthiness, simply as the faithful, impersonal, mechanical operation of the law you are creating. The only question is what? And hear me clearly on this. You cannot activate your mind by force or fear. The activation happens through rest, through ease, through surrender. Not the surrender of giving up, the surrender of the farmer who has planted his seed and knows that anxious watching does not accelerate germination. the surrender of someone who trusts the process so completely that interference would seem not just unnecessary but absurd. You move through the world lightly because you know the work is already done in the unseen. You do not argue with circumstances. You do not battle appearances. You return again and again without drama, without the accumulated frustration of someone who is tired of returning to the vision held in your imagination. And you live there. You dwell there. You make it as familiar as your own name. Train yourself to feel the joy before the event, to feel the satisfaction before the result, to feel the abundance before the money appears. This is not self-deception. This is divine creation, the way consciousness has always worked, the way it is working right now, the way it worked in every life that has ever been transformed from the inside out. The sleeping person reacts to the world. The awakened person creates it. The sleeping person lets circumstances determine their inner state. The awakened person chooses their inner state and lets circumstances follow. Do not underestimate the power of repetition. The subconscious accepts through feeling, through persistence, through the quiet accumulation of a belief repeated until it becomes not a belief at all, but simply the obvious truth of who you are. If you say, "I am wealthy," but feel otherwise, do not abandon the practice, but do not say it with desperation. Say it with certainty, not louder, deeper. Let the phrase become a rhythm, a melody that plays in the background of your days until it takes root in the deeper self. And then when you least expect it, through a phone call you weren't anticipating, a meeting that seemed like coincidence, an idea that appeared from nowhere in a moment of stillness, the outer world bends. Not because you forced it, because you held the frequency long enough for it to become your natural broadcast. And everything you want is drawn to that frequency with the same reliability with which iron filings are drawn to a magnet. You are broadcasting all the time. The question is not whether you are creating. The question is what you are creating. Every thought charged with genuine emotion becomes a decree. Every fear entertained with genuine feeling becomes a prayer answered in the wrong direction. So why not reverse the pattern deliberately, joyfully, with the full authority of someone who understands the mechanism? Instead of expecting problems, expect favor. Instead of rehearsing what you don't want until it feels inevitable, rehearse what you do want until anything else would feel strange. Once you assume a state and feel it real, the law begins to operate immediately. Not when you see results, the moment you genuinely inhabit the state. You may not see outer evidence that day or the next. That means nothing about whether the law is working. The seed is planted. Do not dig it up with doubt. Do not cancel it with contradiction, the specific, exhausting contradiction of believing one moment and fearing the next, alternating between the old state and the new one, and wondering why the outer world is giving you mixed signals. It is giving you exactly what you are giving it. Remain faithful. Remain still. The longer you persist in a state, the more natural it becomes. And when it becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. Naturalness is the sign that the assumption has been genuinely accepted, and accepted assumptions manifest with the same inevitability with which planted seeds become trees. The power to manifest anything is not reserved for certain people. It is not rationed by God to the spiritually advanced or the morally deserving. It is your birthright. It is written into the very nature of what you are. And it is not hidden. It is not locked behind some technique you have not yet learned or some practice you have not yet perfected. It is here, available at this moment, waiting only for your recognition. The moment you stop looking outside and turn within, truly within, with the willingness to find something real there, you will feel it, like a quiet flame in the chest, a knowing, a calm, settled certainty that does not require the world's confirmation because it is more real than anything the world can offer. That feeling, that sacred, untroubled conviction, is worth more than all the strategies and methods in the world combined, Because once you feel it genuinely, the outer must follow. The outer is never first. Never. It is always the echo. The cause is always consciousness. If doubt rises, and it will rise, especially in the early days of a new assumption, do not argue with it. Do not enter into a philosophical debate with your own fear. Transcend it. How? By moving into the state of the answered prayer. By feeling right now in this moment what it would feel like if the thing you desire were already yours. Not thinking about it, feeling it. This is your divine faculty. This is the specific capacity that separates human beings from every other form of creation we know of, the ability to feel the reality of what does not yet appear. This is how you activate the mind. Not through worry, not through the exhausting effort of trying to make something happen by sheer force of will. Through bold, deliberate, joyful inner acceptance. You are not here to live at the mercy of circumstance. You are here to command circumstance through feeling, through imagination, through the holy act of assumption. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like fantasy becomes your norm. What once felt like pretending becomes simply being. What once felt distant becomes daily. You no longer hope you know. You no longer wait, you dwell. And in this dwelling, everything you want is drawn to you with the irresistible force of law. Do not mistake silence for absence. Do not mistake the lag between inner assumption and outer manifestation for failure. The moment you change your inner state, your world begins rearranging itself. It may do so quietly, through paths you did not expect, in ways that only make sense in retrospect. But it does it, without fail, without exception, without ever once breaking the law. You must be still and trust it. You must return again and again to the end, to the fulfilled desire, inhabited naturally, without strain. That is where your power lives. That is where creation begins and where it is sustained. And this thinking from the end, not of the end, is the distinction that separates those who manifest consistently from those who practice faithfully and wonder why nothing shifts. Thinking of the end keeps you here, looking towards something over there. Thinking from the end places you inside the fulfilled state, looking out at a world that reflects your possession. The feeling you cultivate is the magnet, and everything you want is already drawn to you the moment you genuinely match its frequency, not when you perform it, when you are it. When the old self rises, when fear knocks, when logic presents its case for why this cannot work, when the world offers its evidence that nothing has changed, you do not collapse. You do not need to fight. You simply return. You remind yourself who you are. You step back into the chosen state with the ease of someone returning to their own home after a brief time away. You say not to the world, not to the doubt, but to yourself, in the quiet authority of your own inner voice, that is no longer my truth. I have moved, and you move. That is how you walk by faith. That is how you reign over the outer world, not by force, not by manipulation, not by demanding that circumstances bend to your will through sheer pressure, but by assumption, by the settled, untroubled, consistently held inner truth that you have chosen and that the law is now building. Dare to believe in the unseen. Dare to feel it real before the world has confirmed it. Dare to walk as though your every desire is already yours, because in the only dimension where things are first made real, it is. Let the old reality shift. Let the doubts dissolve. Let the fear fall away as naturally as leaves fall from a tree that has grown past the season they belong to. You have entered a new state of being, a new identity. And from this moment forward, everything must change to reflect the self you have chosen to become. The world is not happening to you. It is happening through you, through every thought, every feeling, every assumption you entertain and sustain. You are the projector. You are the author. You are, in the deepest and most literal sense, the operant power. Begin tonight. Not after more preparation, not when you feel more ready. Now, close your eyes and feel it real. Whatever you desire, imagine what implies it is already done. Do not force the scene. Allow it to unfold. Make it lovely. Make it ordinary. Make it feel like coming home to something that was always yours. And then dwell there. Return to it. Make it more familiar than your current outer world. And as you do, you will notice something that cannot be explained by coincidence. The outer world begins to shift. People change, events align, paths open from directions you were not watching. You will not be surprised. You will smile not in disbelief, but in recognition. Because you knew. You knew the moment you claimed the state. You knew the moment you stopped asking permission from appearances and started giving direction to consciousness. You are no longer the reactive self, the one who waits to see how the world feels before deciding how to feel. You are the creative self, the one who feels first and watches the world arrange itself accordingly. This is the activated mind. This is your inheritance. It was never withheld from you. It was only awaiting your recognition. Your imagination is God in action. Use it, trust it, live it, and watch with the calm, satisfied recognition of someone who already knew as the impossible bows to the one truth that sets everything free. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.